Have you ever wondered why hydrogen cars, once hyped as the future of clean transportation, never became the global sensation everyone expected? The idea sounded almost magical. A car that runs on the most abundant element in the universe, emits nothing but water vapor, and promises long driving ranges with quick refueling. So why didn't hydrogen cars dominate our roads? Let's take a thrilling dive into the real causes of this flop, from the bold dreams of automakers to the harsh realities of the marketplace. Now let's start with the vision. Back in the early 2000s and even before, companies like Toyota, Honda, Hyundai, and several European automakers envisioned hydrogen fuel cell vehicles as the ultimate solution to the climate crisis. They invested billions of dollars in research, built prototype fleets, and staged grand showcases at international auto shows. Hydrogen was painted as the technology that would outshine gasoline and even leapfrog the battery electric revolution. The Toyota Mirai, the Honda Clarity, and the Hyundai Nexo were all symbols of that vision. For a while, governments in Japan, Germany, South Korea, and California threw their support behind it. Plans for hydrogen highways, hydrogen fueling stations, and hydrogen hubs were announced with fanfare. But here's where things get interesting. The market never responded the way hydrogen dreamers had hoped. Why? The answer is not simple, and that's what makes this story so captivating. First, let's talk about infrastructure. Cars need fuel, and hydrogen fuel is not something you can just pick up at your nearest corner station. While gasoline and diesel are available everywhere, hydrogen stations are painfully rare. In California, the biggest hydrogen market in the United States, there are only a few dozen stations for the entire state. Japan has made more progress, building over 100 stations. But still, it's not even close to what's needed for mass adoption. In Europe, only Germany has attempted a real hydrogen refueling network, and even that has struggled to expand. Without widespread fueling stations, drivers face what experts call range anxiety on steroids. Imagine paying $60,000 for a hydrogen car, only to realize you need to plan your life around where the next hydrogen pump is located. That alone scared off millions of potential buyers. Now let's move to cost. Producing hydrogen fuel is expensive, especially when it's made in a clean way. Most hydrogen today comes from natural gas through a process that releases carbon dioxide, which defeats the entire purpose of being, quote, green. Cleaner hydrogen, known as green hydrogen, is made by splitting water with renewable electricity. But this process is costly and inefficient. It takes a lot of energy to produce hydrogen, compress it, store it, and then pump it into a car. By the time hydrogen reaches your vehicle's tank, the cost per mile is far higher than electricity used to charge a battery electric car. Consumers noticed. When a Toyota Mirai owner pulls into a station, they often pay more than double what a Tesla owner spends to charge at home. That price gap has been devastating. Next, let's talk about competition. Hydrogen cars didn't fail in a vacuum. They were crushed by the meteoric rise of battery electric vehicles. Tesla, BYD, Rivian, and dozens of others stole the spotlight. Governments shifted their incentives toward electric cars because they were easier to deploy, cheaper to run, and required no brand new fueling infrastructure beyond home charging. Consumers quickly learned that plugging in overnight was far more convenient than searching for a rare hydrogen pump. And once the electric vehicle wave started, it became nearly impossible for hydrogen vehicles to catch up. But the problem doesn't end there. Automakers themselves began losing faith. Toyota, the biggest hydrogen advocate, pushed the Mirai aggressively, but sales numbers were dismal. In some years, Toyota sold fewer than 3,000 units worldwide, a microscopic figure compared to the hundreds of thousands of electric cars sold in the same time frame. Honda eventually pulled the plug on its Clarity fuel cell program altogether, citing poor demand. Hyundai continues to build the Nexo, but volumes are tiny. Even in Japan, where the government heavily subsidized hydrogen, consumers weren't lining up to buy. The cars were expensive, the fuel was expensive, and the stations were scarce. Automakers realized they were pouring billions into a technology that wasn't catching fire with the public. Now, let's zoom out and look at the biggest markets. The United States, Europe, China, and Japan dictate the global auto industry's future. In the US, California is the only real hydrogen battleground. And even there, EVs have obliterated hydrogen cars. In Europe, battery EVs dominate the headlines and sales charts. In China, the world's largest car market, hydrogen never had a chance in passenger vehicles. The Chinese government made a clear bet on electric vehicles, investing heavily in charging infrastructure and battery factories. Today, China is the world leader in electric cars, while hydrogen is used almost exclusively for buses or trucks in limited projects. Japan is perhaps the only country still pushing hydrogen cars aggressively, but even there, the numbers don't lie. Electric cars outsell hydrogen cars by enormous margins. So what about the current users? Well, hydrogen car owners often describe the experience as frustrating. On paper, the cars drive beautifully, quiet, smooth, with instant torque and zero emissions. But the day-to-day reality is different. Stations sometimes break down or run out of hydrogen. Drivers in California have shown up to pumps only to find out-of-service signs. Others have faced fuel shortages that lasted weeks. Meanwhile, their friends with EVs simply plug in at home, sip coffee, and drive away the next morning fully charged. That convenience gap has made hydrogen cars feel outdated even though they were once futuristic. But here's the real kicker. The physics of hydrogen simply don't favor passenger cars. To power a hydrogen fuel cell car, you need to create hydrogen through electrolysis, compress it, transport it, store it, and then convert it back to electricity inside the car. Each step wastes energy. In contrast, charging a battery car is direct. Electricity flows straight into the battery and powers the wheels with far fewer losses. Studies show that hydrogen cars are 2 to 3 times less efficient overall than battery EVs. And in a world obsessed with efficiency and cost savings, that inefficiency is a death sentence. Does this mean hydrogen is useless? Not at all. In fact, hydrogen still has a promising role in heavy trucking, shipping, and industrial applications. Where massive energy storage is needed and charging a huge battery is impractical, hydrogen could shine. But for everyday passenger cars, the dream has crumbled. The real causes of hydrogen's flop are a cocktail of high costs, poor infrastructure, stiff competition, low efficiency, and weak consumer demand. Let's not forget the psychology of drivers. People buy cars not just for transportation but also for peace of mind. Nobody wants to gamble on whether they'll find fuel tomorrow. Nobody wants to pay extra for something less convenient. And nobody wants to be part of an experiment that feels like it's already losing. Hydrogen cars carried the stigma of being, quote, failed futuristic projects rather than practical solutions. That narrative has been hard to shake. And yet, some governments and companies still refuse to give up. Japan continues to push hydrogen as a national strategy. South Korea invests heavily in hydrogen buses. Germany supports hydrogen for trucks. But these are niche applications. The dream of hydrogen cars filling driveways worldwide has, at least for now, collapsed. So why didn't hydrogen cars get so popular? The answer is layered but clear. Automakers bet on a technology that was elegant in theory but messy in practice. The biggest markets shifted their focus to electric vehicles. Consumers wanted convenience and affordability, not futuristic promises that came with real-world headaches. And physics itself stacked the deck against hydrogen cars. As we close this journey, let's reflect on what this story teaches us. Sometimes, the most exciting technologies fail not because they're useless, but because the world chooses a different path. Hydrogen cars will remain a fascinating chapter in automotive history, a story of bold dreams, massive investments, and harsh realities. And while they didn't conquer the roads as promised, they remind us of one simple truth. In the race toward the future, the winners are decided not by who dreams the loudest, but by who delivers the most practical, affordable, and reliable solutions. The hydrogen car dream isn't dead, it has simply shifted. It may never rule your neighborhood streets, but it could power the trucks that haul your groceries, the ships that bring your goods, or the industries that make your steel. In that sense, hydrogen still has a future. But when it comes to passenger cars, the verdict is in. Hydrogen lost the race. And that, my friends, is why hydrogen cars never became as popular as once imagined. It wasn't just one reason. It was a perfect storm of market forces, consumer choices, infrastructure gaps, and the unstoppable rise of battery electric rivals. A fascinating saga of ambition, disappointment, and the relentless march of progress.